The emergency alarm rang through Medical Station Tau 7 at exactly 1400 hours. Doctor's antennae twitched as she looked up from her desk. Her four arms moved quickly across the console, bringing up the distress signal details. A cargo ship was coming in damaged. The pilot needed immediate medical attention. "Prepare Emergency Bay 3, called out to her staff. Her voice carried the clicking sounds natural to her species. "We have an incoming patient." Nurse appeared in the doorway. He was human, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing the standard blue medical uniform. "What's the situation, doctor?" "Cargo vessel, single pilot, ship shows significant damage." His large compound eyes studied the readings. "Prepare for standard trauma protocol." Nodded and moved toward the emergency bay. Followed, her 6 legs carrying her quickly down the corridor. She had been the head physician on this station for 12 years. She had seen countless injuries, treated dozens of different species. She prided herself on her calm professionalism. The station shook slightly as the damaged ship docked. Watched the airlock door through the observation window. Her medical scanner was ready, calibrated for general use. It would identify the species and adjust automatically. The airlock hissed open. Steam poured out into the bay. Then she walked through. The human woman was limping badly. Her flight suit was torn and stained with blood. She held one arm against her chest at an odd angle. Her face was pale and covered in sweat. But she was walking. She was conscious. She even managed a weak smile when she saw. "Hey there," she said, her voice strained. "Sorry to drop in like this." Activated her scanner automatically. The device hummed to life, invisible beams washing over the human pilot. Then every screen in the emergency bay turned red. His breathing holes flared in shock. The scanner results couldn't be right. She tapped the device, wondering if it had malfunctioned. The readings didn't change. "Doctor," moved toward the human woman, supporting her weight. "We need to get her to a bed." "Wait." His voice came out higher than normal. She stared at her scanner, then at the woman, then back at the scanner. "These readings, they cannot be accurate." The human woman laughed, then winced in pain. "Let me guess, your machine is freaking out." "It says," mandibles clicked nervously, "it says you have 17 broken bones." "Sounds about right," the woman said. She let help her toward the medical bed. "Gravity regulator failed during an asteroid dodge. Got thrown around the cockpit pretty hard. I'm commander, by the way, Park." Couldn't move. Her training told her to help the patient immediately, but her instincts screamed danger. The scanner showed fractures throughout skeleton, 3 ribs broken, spine fractured in 2 places, left arm shattered, right leg broken in multiple locations, pelvis cracked, several fingers fractured. Any with even one of these injuries would be dead. The shock alone would have stopped their hearts. The pain would have shut down their nervous system. This human should be unconscious. She should be dying. Instead, she was making jokes. "Doctor's" voice was gentle but firm. "I need you here." Other medical staff had gathered in the doorway, could hear their frightened chittering. Doctor, her colleague, stood frozen just like her. His eyes were wide with terror. "How is she alive?" whispered in their native language. "How is she moving?" Settled onto the medical bed with help. She looked around at the staring aliens. "I know I look bad, but I've had worse. Just need some pain medication and maybe someone to set these bones properly. The auto splints on my ship weren't great." "Pain medication," repeated slowly. Her mind was struggling to process this. "You want pain medication?" "Yeah, it hurts pretty bad." His face was tight with discomfort, but her voice stayed steady. "Look, I know human physiology is different, but I really need treatment. Can you help me or not?" That broke through's shock. She was a doctor. This was a patient. Fear didn't matter. She moved forward, her legs carrying her to the bedside, but her hands shook as she reached for her instruments. "Get the bone scanner and the..." She couldn't remember the name of the equipment. Her mind was blank with panic. "I've got it, doctor," was already moving, pulling equipment from storage. He seemed completely calm. "Commander, I'm going to need to cut away your flight suit to access the injuries." "Do what you need to do," closed her eyes briefly. "Just, maybe be quick about it." Watched as worked efficiently. He had been the human medical assistant on the station for 2 years. She had always appreciated his steady presence. Now she realized she had never truly understood what humans were capable of. The bone scanner showed the damage in horrifying detail. Skeleton looked like shattered glass on the display. Felt dizzy. In the doorway, several staff members had fled. Others were calling for security. "This is impossible," Doctor said from a safe distance. "She should be dead. What kind of creature survives this?" Opened one eye. "The kind that comes from a high-gravity world with dangerous predators. Look, I know this is scary for you guys, but I promise I'm not going to die on your table. Humans are tough. We heal. Just need a little help from modern medicine." "Tough," repeated. She had treated humans before for minor injuries. Cuts, bruises, simple breaks. She had read about human biology in medical school, but reading and seeing were very different things. "The pain must be extraordinary," she said quietly. "It's not fun," admitted, "but I've dealt with pain before. Broke my back in basic training. Compound fracture in my arm during my first cargo run. You learn to handle it." Broke her back. Santini went completely still. This human had broken her spine before and survived. More than survived. She had continued her career. She was here now, broken again and still conscious. "What kind of species were humans?" Finished his initial assessment. "We need to stabilize the spine first, then set the major bones. Doctor, I'll need your authorization to access the human medical supplies in Storage Bay 7. Human medical supplies said, "Yes, of course." She activated her wrist communicator with trembling hands. "This is Doctor, authorize access to Storage Bay 7, emergency medical code." An alert sounded on her console. Administrator Minu's face appeared on the screen. "Doctor, what's the situation? We're receiving panic reports from your wing." Looked at who managed a small wave at the camera. "We have a human patient with extensive injuries. She is stable, but the staff is frightened." "I see." Minu's expression was serious. "I'm coming down personally. Secure the area." The screen went dark. Took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing hearts. She had 3 hearts and all of them were pounding. Smiled weakly. "Sorry for causing trouble, but hey, at least I'm the most interesting patient you'll have all week, right?" Despite everything, felt her mandibles curve in what might have been a smile. "Commander Park," she said, "you are certainly that." She just hoped they both survived whatever came next. Administrator Minu arrived 15 minutes later with 4 security officers. He was tall with distinctive silver markings on his carapace. His expression was stern as he entered the emergency bay. "Everyone except essential medical personnel leave now," he ordered. The remaining staff scattered quickly. Only and Doctor remained. Minu approached the medical bed cautiously. He stared at who was now hooked up to several monitoring devices. The screens showed readings that made no sense by standards. "Her heart rate is 200 beats per minute," Minu said. "That should be fatal." "That's elevated but not dangerous for humans under stress," explained. He was adjusting an IV line in his arm. "Her blood pressure is also high but manageable. Human bodies are designed for crisis situations." "Designed for crisis," Minu repeated slowly. He looked at, "Doctor, what is your medical assessment?" Forced herself to think professionally. "The patient has 17 fractures of varying severity, multiple ribs, spine, pelvis, limbs. By our protocols, she should receive maximum sedation and be placed in full-body suspension for transport to a specialized facility." "No sedation." His voice was firm despite her pain. "I've had bad reactions to sedatives before. They don't work right on human nervous systems. Made me hallucinate for 3 days last time. Minu's antennae twitched. You refuse treatment. I refuse sedation, corrected. I want treatment, just not drugs that will make me worse. She's right, added. Human neurochemistry is very different. Standard sedatives can cause severe adverse reactions. We need human-specific medications, which are not standard stock in this clinic, doctor said from across the room. He hadn't come closer since Minu arrived. We have limited human supplies for minor injuries only. Looked at her scanner again. The protocols were clear. For this level of trauma, immediate sedation was required. It prevented shock and allowed the body to focus on survival instead of pain management. But those protocols were written for and similar species. What do humans do with such injuries? She asked. He smiled grimly. We stay awake and deal with it. Military medics treat soldiers with worse injuries on battlefields all the time. Conscious patients can tell you what hurts, what's wrong, what they need. Conscious patients can also panic and cause more damage, argued. Look at me, said tiredly. Do I look like I'm panicking? I've been through worse. His curiosity overcame her fear for a moment. What could be worse than this? Managed a weak laugh. During my military service, I saw a guy get blown out of an airlock. He survived in vacuum for almost 2 minutes before we got him back inside. Lost a leg and had severe decompression injuries. He recovered and went back to active duty. The room fell silent, felt her breathing holes constrict. 2 minutes in vacuum would kill any in seconds. Humans survived it. I also knew a woman who fell 3 stories during building construction, continued. Broke both legs, her pelvis, several vertebrae. She was back at work in 6 months. Humans are persistence hunters, doctor. Our bodies don't give up easily. Minu shifted uncomfortably. That's disturbing. It's survival, said simply. Our home world wasn't kind. We evolved to take damage and keep going. Opened a storage cabinet and began pulling out equipment. With respect, Administrator, we're wasting time. Commander Park needs treatment now. I can handle the basics if Doctor supervises. Watched work. He moved with practiced efficiency, gathering instruments and supplies. She realized he had probably dealt with injuries like this before, maybe during his own military service, maybe on Earth, where such things were considered normal. How many humans have you treated with major trauma? She asked him. Personally, maybe 20 or 30. Most were construction accidents or transport incidents. He prepared a syringe with clear fluid. This is human-grade pain medication. It'll take the edge off without sedating her. The edge off, repeated. She has 17 broken bones. And she'll feel maybe 8 of them after this instead of all 17. Administered the injection. Sighed in relief as the medication took effect. That's better, she said. Thank you. Made a decision. Administrator, I request permission to deviate from standard protocols. I will follow nurse's lead on human-specific treatment procedures. Minu's mandibles clicked in agitation. This is highly irregular. So is having a conscious patient with this level of trauma, countered. But she is conscious, she is stable, and she is right here telling us what she needs. We should listen. A long moment passed. Finally, Minu nodded. Very well, but I want constant monitoring. If her condition deteriorates, we sedate her immediately and transfer her off station. Agreed, said. Minu left with his security team. Doctor hesitated in the doorway. I'll be in the observation room if you need assistance, he said, then fled. Turn 2, teach me. For the next hour, explained human trauma medicine while treating. He showed how to read human vital signs correctly. What looked like crisis readings were actually normal stress responses. The elevated heart rate was pumping blood and oxygen to injured areas. The high blood pressure was maintaining circulation despite internal bleeding. Human bodies go into overdrive during trauma, explained. We have automatic responses that keep us functional. Adrenaline, endorphins, increased clotting factors. It's why we can walk on broken legs or fight with shattered ribs. He began setting bones using human medical equipment pulled from storage, watched, fascinated and horrified. The process was brutal by standards. Pulled bones back into alignment with significant force. Gritted her teeth but didn't cry out. "You're doing great, Commander," said encouragingly. Liar gasped, "This hurts like hell but keep going." Helped hold instruments, learning as she worked. Human bones were dense and heavy. They required different techniques than exoskeletons. She had to apply pressure that would have shattered her own limbs. "How long will healing take?" she asked. "For breaks this severe, probably 8 to 12 weeks for the major bones," said. "Minor fractures might heal in 4 to 6 weeks." "Weeks," Santeni drooped, "not months." "Humans heal fast," said through clenched teeth. "Dense bones, good blood supply, aggressive immune systems were built for damage control." An alarm suddenly blared. His console lit up with a new emergency signal. She checked the readout and felt her heart sink. "It's a child," she whispered. "Child, single fracture to the front right leg, critical condition." Looked up from his work. "Go, I can finish here." Hesitated. She looked at who gave her a firm nod despite her pain. "Save your kid," Doc said. "I'm not going anywhere." Ran. Her legs carried her to the pediatric wing where a small crowd had gathered. The child's parents were clicking frantically in distress. The young, a girl named, lay on a medical bed. Her leg was bent at an unnatural angle. The fracture was simple, clean. By human standards, it would be a minor injury, but vital signs were crashing. Her breathing was labored. Her skin color was fading. This was normal. This was what serious injury looked like for her species. This was death approaching. Pushed down her earlier fears and focused on saving the child in front of her. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't stop thinking about the human woman lying in the emergency bay. The human woman, with 17 breaks, who was joking and conscious. The human woman who somehow, impossibly, was not dying. What kind of universe had produced such creatures? And more importantly, what did it mean that they were now traveling the stars alongside species who were so much more fragile? Didn't have answers. She only had a child to save and a human patient who had redefined everything she thought she knew about medicine. It was going to be a very long night. While Doctor worked frantically to save Young in the pediatric wing, Nurse continued treating Commander in the emergency bay. He had just finished setting her left arm when the door opened. A tall human man entered. He wore the black uniform of station security with 3 silver bars on his collar. His face was weathered and telling stories of a difficult life. He carried a data pad in one hand. "Chief," said, recognizing him, "come to check on the crazy pilot." Security chief smiled slightly. "Something like that. Also heard the medical staff is having a meltdown. Thought I'd bring some information that might help." He held up the data pad. "Human medical database, combat injury records, survival statistics." Nodded gratefully. "That'll be useful. Doctor is adapting to the reality of human durability." Pulled up a chair and sat down beside's bed. His eyes scanned her injuries professionally. 17 breaks. That's a solid Tuesday for you." She laughed, then winced. "Don't make me laugh, it hurts." "Sorry," looked at, "how's she really doing?" "Stable, pain managed. No internal bleeding that I can detect. She'll need proper imaging and more advanced treatment, but she's not in immediate danger." Checked a monitor. "Her body is already starting to repair itself." Showed the data pad too. The screen displayed lists of injuries, survival rates, and recovery times. This is from the Confederation military database. Human soldiers, combat injuries, survival statistics over the last 50 years. Scrolled through the information, his eyes widening. "Did you clear this for civilian medical use?" I cleared it for emergency medical use, corrected, which this qualifies as. The aliens need to understand what they're dealing with. Shifted carefully on the bed. What does it say? Smiled grimly. That you're not even close to the record. Worst recorded injury that someone survived was a soldier named. Explosive decompression, 73 broken bones, internal organ damage, radiation exposure. He spent 4 months in medical care and made a full recovery. 4 months, repeated, and full recovery. He's still active duty, confirmed. Last I heard, he was training new recruits on his home world. Shook her head in amazement. Humans are crazy. Humans are survivors, said. That's what the other species don't understand. They look at us and see monsters. We just see challenges to overcome. The door opened again. Doctor stood in the doorway, his compound eyes fixed on the data pad. I've been listening from the observation room, he admitted. May I see those records? Handed him the data pad. Antennae began twitching as he read. His mandibles clicked in what might have been distress or fascination. This says a human survived being spaced for 120 seconds, he said slowly. Yeah, that was messy, confirmed. But the person lived. Spent 3 weeks in intensive care, but they lived. Continued reading. 70% of humans with spinal fractures return to normal activity. 85% of compound fractures heal without permanent disability. These numbers are impossible. They're facts, said gently. Human bodies are designed for damage. We evolved on a high-gravity world with predators and environmental hazards. The weak ones didn't survive. The strong ones passed on their genes. Tell them about persistence hunting, suggested. That always freaks aliens out. Nodded. Before humans had advanced weapons, we hunted by following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We would track an animal for days, sometimes weeks, never stopping. The prey would run until its heart gave out. We would just keep walking. His breathing holes flared. That's horrifying. That's evolution, said. We're not the strongest species. We're not the fastest, but we don't quit, ever. That's what makes us human. I saw this during my own military service, continued. I was in a mixed species unit. Humans, others. During training exercises, the aliens would reach their limits and stop. We humans would keep going, not because we wanted to, because our bodies and minds are wired to push through limits. He stood and walked to the observation window. I remember one exercise. We had to march 50 kilometers with full gear. They could only manage 20 before their bodies started shutting down. They made it 30. Humans made the full 50 and were ready to keep going if ordered. But you must feel pain, said. You must feel exhaustion. Of course we do, answered. But feeling it doesn't mean we stop. Pain is just information. It tells us something is wrong, but if we need to keep going, we keep going. Finished bandaging his arm. During my medical training, I learned about a phenomenon called stress-induced analgesia. When humans are in crisis situations, our brains release chemicals that reduce pain perception. We literally override our own pain response to survive. I experienced that once, said. My first serious crash. Didn't realize how badly I was hurt until hours later when the adrenaline wore off. Then I passed out. Returned to his chair. The Confederation has files on human durability. They're classified. Most species aren't allowed to see them because the information is considered psychologically disturbing. Why am I not surprised? Muttered. There was an incident 15 years ago, continued. A human merchant ship was boarded by pirates, mixed species crew. The pirates killed the alien crew members quickly, but the humans fought back with broken limbs and serious injuries. 2 humans held off 8 pirates for over an hour before reinforcements arrived. The pirates were so disturbed by fighting opponents who wouldn't die that 3 of them refused to ever raid another ship. Set down the data pad carefully. We thought you were dying when you walked in here. We thought we were watching something impossible. You were watching something normal, said. For humans, I know it's hard to understand. Your species is fragile by our standards. A single broken bone can kill you. For us, it's an inconvenience. More than an inconvenience, corrected with a pained smile. It hurts, a lot, but it's not death. An alarm sounded on his wrist communicator. He checked it and frowned. The pediatric wing is calling for assistance. The child's condition is worsening. Santeni drooped. She's not responding to treatment. Tried to sit up, immediately moved to stop her. Commander, you need to stay still. A kid is dying, said. Maybe I can help. You have 17 broken bones, reminded her firmly. You're not going anywhere. Then bring me the information, insisted. What's wrong with the child? What's the injury? Pulled up the medical files. Single fracture, front right leg, clean break, but she's going into shock. Studied the information on the screen. Her expression became thoughtful despite her pain. What's the treatment protocol? Explained quickly. Full body suspension in regeneration fluid, bone fusing stimulants, sedation to prevent shock from worsening. What's her age? 8 years old. His eyes narrowed. In human years or years. Said she's a young child. Then her bone density is different from an adult, said. Is your regeneration field calibrated for adult bones or juvenile bones? Silence filled the room. Santeni went completely still. We use standard settings, he said slowly. Adult settings are default. That might be the problem, said. A child's bones are less dense, more flexible. If you're hitting them with adult-level regeneration, you might be causing more damage, making the break worse instead of better. Grabbed his communicator. Doctor, this is. I need you to check the regeneration field calibration immediately. From across the station, his voice came through sounding exhausted and frightened. What? Why? Commander Park thinks the settings might be wrong for juvenile bones. There was a pause, then his voice came back sharp with sudden hope. She's right. The field is set for adult density, recalibrating now. They waited. Seconds felt like hours. Lay back on the bed, breathing carefully. Watched the monitors showing vital signs from the connected systems. Then slowly, the child's readings began to stabilize. It's working, his voice came through the communicator. Her pain levels are dropping, heart rate normalizing, she's stabilizing. Stared at, how did you know? Smiled tiredly. I've hauled cargo across the galaxy for 15 years. Different species, different medical needs, different equipment. You learn things. You learn that details matter, that what works for an adult doesn't always work for a child. You saved her life, said quietly. A human with 17 broken bones saved a child's life. Just paying it forward, said. Her eyes were starting to close. Someone saved me once. Now I save someone else. That's how it works. Her voice trailed off as exhaustion finally caught up with her. Quickly checked her vitals. She's crashing, he said urgently. She pushed herself too far. Hit the emergency call. All medical staff to Emergency Bay 3. Human patient in critical condition. As alarms blared and staff rushed in, stood frozen. He had watched a dying human save a child. He had seen impossible strength and unexpected kindness. He was beginning to understand that humans were far more than the monsters he had feared. They were something much more complex and much more remarkable. And now one of them might die, because she used her last reserves of strength to save someone else's child. That, he realized, was the most human thing of all. Doctor ran through the corridors at full speed. Her 6 legs carried her faster than she had ever moved before. Behind her, Young was finally resting peacefully. The child's parents were weeping with relief, but there was no time to celebrate. The human was dying. Burst into the emergency bay to find chaos, was working frantically over still form, held equipment while shouting into his communicator. Doctor stood to the side, his antennae twitching helplessly. "Report," commanded, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Blood pressure dropping," said quickly. Heart rate becoming irregular. She overextended herself. Her body was already at its limit and helping with pushed her past it. Moved to the monitors. The readings that had seemed impossibly high before were now falling dangerously low. His face was pale, almost gray. Her breathing was shallow. "This is what shock looks like for humans," realized aloud. "Not the fractures, not the pain, this, when they finally run out of reserves." "We need to stabilize her now," said. His hands moved quickly, adjusting IV lines and checking equipment. "But I don't have everything I need. This clinic isn't equipped for major human trauma surgery." His mind raced. She had spent the last few hours treating, but she had also been thinking about human physiology, about everything had taught her. She had been afraid, yes, but she had also been learning. "Tell me what you need," she said firmly. "I will provide it." "We need to operate," explained. "There's internal bleeding I couldn't detect earlier, probably from one of the rib fractures. It was slow, but it's been building. Now it's critical." "Then we operate," activated her console. "Doctor, prepare surgical suite 2, full sterile protocol. Access storage bay 7 again. Get every piece of human medical equipment we have." They moved quickly. Within 10 minutes was being transferred to the surgical suite. Scrubbed in while reviewed every file she could find on human internal anatomy. The images looked alien to her. Human organs were so densely packed, so interconnected. "I've never performed surgery on a human," she admitted as she entered the surgical suite. "I have," said, "but not like this, not trauma surgery. I'll need your help, doctor, your experience." Took her position at the surgical table. She looked down at its unconscious face. This human had walked into her clinic broken and bleeding. She had remained conscious through injuries that would have killed anyone had ever treated. She had even saved a child's life with her last bit of strength. And now she lay here, finally vulnerable, finally looking as fragile as she should have from the start. "I won't let you die," whispered. "I promise." They began the operation, guided hands showing her where to cut, how deep, what to avoid. Human bodies were different from anything she had worked with before. The muscles were dense and tough. The blood vessels were thick. Everything was built to withstand pressure. "There," said, pointing. "The bleeding. Fractured rib punctured the intercostal artery." Could see it now, a steady flow of blood from a torn vessel. This much blood loss would have been immediately fatal, but humans had more blood, stronger hearts, better clotting. Still had been bleeding internally for hours. She was running out of time. His hands moved carefully. Her forearms gave her an advantage here. She could hold tissue aside while manipulating instruments with precision. Years of surgical experience guided her movements. "Clamp," she said calmly, handed her the instrument. She sealed the bleeding vessel. Then she checked for other damage. Another rib had cracked but not broken through. A third showed stress fractures. She stabilized them carefully, using techniques she had never tried before but somehow understood. "You're doing great, doctor," said encouragingly, "just like we practiced." They hadn't practiced, but somehow it felt like they had. Realized she was learning in real time, adapting, overcoming her fear to save a life. Just like humans did. An hour passed, then two. The surgery was complex and delicate. Arms began to ache from the precision work, but she didn't stop, she couldn't stop. Finally checked the monitors and nodded. "That's it. We got all the bleeding. Her vitals are stabilizing." Stepped back from the table. Her breathing holes were working overtime. She felt exhausted in a way she never had before, but readings were improving steadily. "She's going to make it," said from the observation area. His voice carried wonder and relief. They closed the surgical incisions and moved to recovery, stayed by her bedside, monitoring every reading, finally convinced her to sit down. "You saved her life," he said quietly. You faced your fear and saved her." "She saved first," replied. "I just returned the favor." "It's more than that," smiled. "You learned today. You saw past the fear to understand humans as patients, not monsters." His antennae drooped with exhaustion. "I still don't fully understand. How can creatures be so resilient yet so fragile? How can they survive impossible things but die from a bleeding vessel like anyone else?" "Because we're not invincible," said. "We're just stubborn. Our bodies fight hard to survive, but we can still die. We just die slower and we fight the whole way." Hours later, his eyes fluttered open. She looked around the recovery room in confusion. Then she saw sitting beside her bed and managed a weak smile. "Did I pass out?" she asked, her voice rough. "You went into shock from internal bleeding," explained. "We had to perform emergency surgery. You've been unconscious for 6 hours." "Process this information slowly. The kid." "Stable and recovering, thanks to your advice." His mandibles curved in a smile. "You saved her life." "Good," closed her eyes briefly. "That's good." "You almost died," said firmly. "You pushed yourself past your limits to help a child you didn't know, a child from a species you had never met. Why?" Opened her eyes again. "Because she needed help, and I could help, that's enough reason." Felt something shift in her understanding. She had been terrified of humans because they seemed indestructible, but the truth was more complex. Humans were tough, yes. They could survive terrible injuries, but they weren't monsters. They were people who chose to use their strength to help others. "I owe you an apology," said quietly. "When you first arrived, I was afraid of you. I saw your injuries and thought you were something dangerous, something incomprehensible." "And now?" asked. "Now I see a person who walked through pain to reach help, who stayed conscious to guide her own treatment, who used her last reserves of strength to save a child." His voice was steady. "I see courage and kindness. Those are things I understand." Smiled. "Thanks, Doc. That means a lot." The door opened. His parents entered hesitantly, followed by Young herself. The child's leg was properly splinted now. She moved carefully, but her eyes were bright. "We heard the human was awake," his mother said in clicking. "We wanted to thank her." Translated quickly. Tried to sit up but gently pushed her back down. "Stay still," ordered. "You just had surgery." Approached the bed shyly. She held out a small drawing she had made. It showed a stick figure with the words "Thank you" written in simple standard. Took the drawing carefully. Her eyes became suspiciously bright. "This is beautiful, thank you." The child clicked happily and her parents bowed in gratitude. As they left, watched the interaction thoughtfully. "You're not what I expected," she admitted too. "None of us are," replied. "That's the thing about meeting new species. Everyone's scary until you understand them. Then they're just people trying to survive and help each other." Nodded slowly. She looked at the monitors showing some improving vital signs. She thought about the surgery she had just performed, the fear she had overcome, the understanding she had gained. "I want to learn more," she said suddenly. "About human medicine, about treating your species properly. Will you help teach me?" Grinned despite her exhaustion. "Doc, I'd be honored." Outside the recovery room, Doctor spoke quietly with Administrator Minu. They watched through the observation window as and talked. "Things are going to change," said. "After today, we can't pretend humans are like other species. We need proper protocols, proper training, proper understanding." Minu nodded. "I've already sent a request to Confederation Medical Command. We need human specialists on staff. We need equipment designed for their physiology. We need to be prepared." "Prepared for what?" "For the reality that humans are traveling the stars now," Minu said. "And they're going to keep surprising us, keep challenging everything we think we know. We can either learn to work with them or stay afraid forever." Looked at through the window. The human who had terrified him just hours ago now seemed different, still remarkable, still shocking, but also brave and kind and worthy of respect. "I choose learning," he said firmly. "Good," Minyu replied. "So do I." 3 weeks passed on Medical Station Tau 7, and everything changed. Doctor walked through the newly renovated human medical wing with a data pad in two of her hands. The other two held various instruments she was cataloging. Where there had once been a small storage bay with basic human supplies, there was now a fully equipped treatment center designed specifically for human physiology. The equipment looked strange to her eyes. Heavy-duty bone scanners capable of penetrating dense human tissue, reinforced surgical tools that wouldn't break under the pressure needed for human procedures, medication synthesizers programmed with hundreds of human-specific compounds. But strange was becoming familiar. Frightening was becoming fascinating. Doctor Nurse called from down the corridor. "Commander Park is asking for you. She wants to show you something." Move to the recovery wing. Over the past 3 weeks, she had spent hours with every day, learning, asking questions, understanding. What had started as medical necessity had become something more, curiosity, friendship even. His room was brighter now. His drawing hung on the wall alongside photographs of Earth that had shared from her personal files. The commander herself sat in a chair by the window, looking far healthier than she had any right to. "Watch this," said with a grin. She stood up slowly, carefully, and took 3 steps across the room without assistance. Santeni perked up in surprise. "You shouldn't be able to walk yet. It's only been 3 weeks. "Human bone density, remember," said. She sat back down with visible relief. "The major fractures are already knitting together. I won't be running marathons, but I can move around. Give it another 3 weeks and I'll be cleared for light duty." 6 weeks total recovery for 17 broken bones, said, still amazed. "By standards, you should need 6 months minimum." "By human standards, I'm taking my time and being careful," gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit down, Doc. I want to talk to you about something." Settled into the chair, her compound eyes studied his face. The human looked thoughtful, almost serious. "I've been talking with Administrator Minyu," began, "and with Chief. There's going to be an inquiry about what happened, about how the station handled a human trauma case, about the panic and confusion." His breathing holes constricted. "Will there be consequences?" "Not the kind you're thinking," assured her quickly. "The inquiry isn't about blame, it's about learning. The Confederation realizes they have a problem. Medical stations across the galaxy aren't prepared to treat humans properly, and humans are everywhere now. We're merchants, explorers, diplomats, workers. Accidents happen, injuries happen, and nobody knows how to help us." "What will the inquiry recommend?" asked. "Mandatory training for all Confederation medical facilities," explained. "Human physiology courses, updated equipment, standardized protocols. They want to start here on Tau 7 as a pilot program." Santeni twitched with interest. "A pilot program?" "With you as the lead physician," added. "They want you to develop the training curriculum, to teach other doctors what you've learned, to share your experience treating me." The weight of that responsibility settled over. She thought about her initial fear, her frozen panic, the way she had almost refused to treat because the injuries seemed too impossible. "I almost failed you," she said quietly. "When you first walked in, I was paralyzed by fear. I saw your broken bones and thought I was looking at death walking. I couldn't understand how you were still alive." "But you learned," said firmly. "You pushed past the fear, you asked questions. You listened when explained human medicine, and when I crashed during surgery you saved my life. That's what matters." "Nurse did most of the work." "Guided you, but you made the choices," corrected. "You decided to trust human medical knowledge. You decided to operate on a species you'd never worked with before. You decided to try. That took courage." His mandibles curved in a small smile. You're the one who took 17 broken bones and stayed conscious long enough to save a child's life. That's real courage. Maybe we're both brave, suggested, in different ways. The door opened and Doctor entered. He had changed over the past 3 weeks as well. The fear in his eyes had been replaced with fascination. He now spent his free time studying human medical journals and asking countless questions. "Commander, Doctor," he greeted them. "I wanted to let you know that is being released today. Full recovery. Her parents want to see you both before they leave." They made their way to the pediatric wing together. Was standing by her bed, testing her weight on her previously fractured leg. Her parents stood nearby, watching anxiously. When she clicked happily and rushed forward. Her parents gasped in alarm, but the child's leg held firm. She hugged carefully, mindful of the human's still healing injuries. "Thank you, Commander," Smother said in standard, clearly having practiced the words. "You saved my daughter." "Doctor saved me right back," replied. "We're all just helping each other. That's what people do." Pulled away and looked up at with wide eyes. "Are all humans as strong as you?" Laughed. "Stronger, actually. I'm pretty average. There are humans who climb mountains, swim across oceans, run for days without stopping. We're built for challenges." "I want to be strong like that," declared. Her father clicked in amusement. "You are strong, little one. You survived a broken leg. That makes you brave." "Everyone's brave in their own way," added. She looked at. "We just have to understand each other's strengths." The family departed with grateful farewells. Stood in the corridor, thinking about how much had changed. 3 weeks ago, she had seen humans as incomprehensible monsters. Now she saw them as remarkable people with different capabilities and needs. Later that afternoon, Administrator Minu called a station-wide meeting. The main conference room was packed with staff from every department. Stood at the front end. Sat in a chair nearby, still not cleared to stand for long periods. 3 weeks ago, we faced a crisis, Minu began. A human patient arrived with injuries that terrified us. We didn't understand what we were seeing. We didn't know how to help. Some of us panicked. Some of us wanted to refuse treatment. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Felt her antennae droop slightly in embarrassment. "But we learned," Minu continued. "Doctor and nurse taught us that different doesn't mean dangerous. That humans may be tougher than us, but they're still people who need medical care, who deserve our help and understanding." He activated a display screen. Images appeared showing the new human medical wing, updated protocols, training schedules. "The Confederation has approved our proposal to become a center for human medical training," Minu announced. "Doctors from across the galaxy will come here to learn from our experience, to understand human physiology, to be prepared when their own human patients need help." Applause filled the room. Noticed many staff members looking at with expressions of respect rather than fear. "I want to thank Commander Park," Minu said, "for her patience, for her courage, for teaching us that being afraid of something new is natural but learning about it is necessary." Stood up carefully. "I just want to add one thing," she said. "Every species in the Confederation is different. We all have unique strengths and weaknesses. Humans can survive major injuries, yes, but we can't see in the dark like. We can't navigate by magnetic fields like. We can't breathe in low oxygen environments like." She gestured around the room. "We need each other. That's why the Confederation exists. Not because we're all the same, but because we're all different. And when we learn about those differences, we become stronger together." More applause followed. Felt pride growing in her chest. She had been part of something important, something that would help countless patients in the future. The meeting ended and staff dispersed. Found herself alone within the conference room. "You're leaving soon," said. "It wasn't a question." "Tomorrow morning," confirmed. "My new ship arrives tonight. I've got cargo runs scheduled across 3 systems. Can't stay grounded forever." "You should rest longer. Your bones are still healing." They'll finish healing while I work, smiled. That's the human way. We don't stop unless we absolutely have to. His mandibles trembled slightly. I'll miss working with you, learning from you. You can keep learning, said. I've arranged for the human medical database to be permanently accessible to this station. Everything we know about human medicine, it's yours now. Study it, use it, teach it to others. I will, promised. I'm going to become the best I can be, starting with humans. Extended her hand in the human gesture of friendship, carefully grasped it with two of her own hands. You know what, said. When I walked into this clinic 3 weeks ago with 17 broken bones, I was scared, not of dying, but of being treated like a monster instead of a patient. And were you? Asked. At first, yes, admitted. But then you changed. You learned. You saved my life. You gave me hope that humans and aliens can truly understand each other. We can, said firmly. We just need time, patience, and willingness to learn. That evening stood in the observation deck and watched the stars. She thought about's words, about understanding and courage, about fear and learning. 6 months later, Doctor stood at a podium in the Confederation Medical Academy. Before her sat 300 medical students from 20 different species. Behind her, a massive display screen showed detailed images of human anatomy. Today we begin Module 7, she announced. Human Resilience and Trauma Medicine. This is considered one of the most challenging courses in xenobiology, and for good reason. Human physiology will challenge everything you think you know about medicine. She activated the screen. Images of initial scans appeared, showing the 17 fractures in stark detail. This human walked into my clinic with these injuries, said. She was conscious. She was mobile. She even helped save another patient's life before collapsing. By the standards of most species, she should have been dead. Murmurs of shock filled the auditorium, waited for them to quiet. I was terrified when I first saw these scans, she admitted. I didn't understand what I was seeing. I almost failed my patient because of that fear, but then I made a choice. I chose to learn, to listen, to understand. She brought up new slides showing different aspects of human physiology. The dense bones, the efficient cardiovascular system, the powerful immune response, the remarkable healing capabilities. Humans are different, she continued. They come from a high-gravity world with extreme conditions. They evolved to take damage and keep functioning. But they are not monsters. They are not invincible. They are people with unique needs who deserve the same quality care we give to every patient. The lecture continued for 2 hours, shared everything she had learned from treating, the protocols, the techniques, the understanding that had transformed her from a frightened doctor into a confident. When the lecture ended, students crowded around with questions, answered each one patiently, remembering how had answered her own frightened questions 3 weeks into her education about humans. Later in her office, she found a message waiting on her console. It was from Commander Park, sent from some distant star system. Dear Doctor, I heard about your new position at the Academy. Congratulations! You're going to teach a whole generation of doctors to see humans as patients instead of monsters. That's going to save lives. Thank you for everything you did for me. Thank you for being brave enough to learn. Your friend. Saved the message carefully. Then she opened her next file. Tomorrow she had another lecture to prepare, more students to teach, more fear to transform into understanding. She thought about that first day when had walked through the airlock with 17 broken bones. She remembered her terror, her confusion, her paralysis. But she also remembered making the choice to push past fear, to learn, to help. That choice had changed everything. In clinics and hospitals across the Confederation, doctors were starting to receive new training, new protocols for human patients, new understanding that being different didn't mean being dangerous. All because one human had walked into a clinic broken but unbowed, and one doctor had chosen to learn instead of running away. The universe was changing. Species that had once feared humans were beginning to understand them, to respect them, to work alongside them as true partners in the great adventure of spacefaring civilization. And it all started with understanding that sometimes the most terrifying things are simply things we don't yet know. But we can always choose to learn. We can always choose courage over fear. We can always choose to see the person behind the impossible.